Senator Boozman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. I want to associate myself again with the problems of the FAFSA rollouts. You've heard so much about that, and it truly is a huge problem. One of the things that has come up is the farm and small business reporting requirement, question 22 of the form. This question requires students to report the net worth of the family's business or for-profit agriculture operations. Given the fluctuation in revenue year over year operating a farm, question 22 misunderstands how farm families operate. Farm assets cannot be cashed out to support a loan in the same capacity as traditional investments. Throughout the process of drafting this requirement, and I understand this is not something you've done, this is something Congress did, okay? But it has unintended consequences that nobody realized. Has the department engaged in conversations with farming stakeholders to understand the impacts of such a requirement? I think it's going to be very, very difficult for any farm family to actually be able to get, the student aid that they have in the past, in the future, under this requirement.
Thank you for sharing that, Senator, and I'm committed to making sure we're talking, and yes, to answer your question, our team has talked to farm families, and we recognize the challenge that they're under. We're committed to working with them and to making sure that they have access. I was in Arkansas recently, in the last 2 weeks, working on increasing FAFSA completion. I want to work with you and everyone in Arkansas to get those numbers up. I think one of the things that we don't really talk about a lot is that across our country, we've normalized a 60% completion, 70% completion of FAFSA. It is our expectation as we work together to get those numbers closer to 90, 95% of students filling it out. And we recognize that in rural communities and farm families have challenges and concerns with it, and we're committed to working with them and you to identify those issues and support them in the process.
No, and that's exactly what we want you to do, work with us, work with Congress to make sure that this really isn't going to be a very, very negative thing. Surveys tell us that over 50% of the Jewish students, feel threatened.
Yeah.
You've got lots of levers, and the only thing I would say is that we really do expect you to use those levers. Yeah. Nobody needs to be bullied. Everyone needs to be safe, not only Jewish students, but students in general. And again, you're going to need to step up and use some of those levers. Some of them you can do it outwardly. Others, you've got a lot of ability to put pressure on institutions. And then transparency, identifying these institutions that we're hearing report after report about. People need to understand what's going on. The other thing is, in listening to Senator Manchin, I think what he was saying really is really important. You have students that simply are not financially literate when they get out of high school. I'd be interested, you gave the example of the lady that had the $30,000 loan that blew to $60,000. The question is, did she know that was going to happen? And I suspect she didn't. I suspect that she had no idea that what she was signing. There's no incentive for the higher ed institutions to provide that knowledge because this is a cash cow for them. It's to their advantage for students to take these loans out. They don't care if they pay them back or not. They don't have any really advantage of explaining that, this is money that's going to need to be paid back. The interest rate is going to be a burden. And looking at their potential, income in the future, how are you going to cash flow all this out? So I would really encourage you, let us help you with that. But that's something that I think would really, we can debate the student loan thing. I agree with Senator Manchin on that also. But regardless of that, as far as eliminating the problem in the future, if you want to have a real impact on people's lives and not getting them in this situation going forward, that really would have a tremendous impact.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Britt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being